Welcome to Miss Martin Muses and a live stream. Yes, it is precious. George R. Martin has been saying some very, very interesting things. And since I've been doing some House of the Dragon content right now, I thought it was very appropriate to go over some of those. What was he thinking? Well, we're going to find out. My goodness gracious. I have been running across some people who are liking House of the Dragon. And listen, if you like House of the Dragon and what they're doing in season 2, more power to you. I'm happy you're enjoying it. I wanted to enjoy it. I'm on the record saying after the first trailer, oh my gosh, this is going to be so amazing. This writes itself. We're not going to have a lot of that kind of nonsense and distracting things that we saw happen in season 1. My goodness, was I wrong. So, I'm disappointed. But I think it's interesting what Martin says, because a lot of people keep saying, oh, he signed off on it. Oh, this is the real version. I'm going to just lay this out right here, right now. He never said that. And it's kind of crazy to say that a TV show is the real version of something you wrote in a book, said no author ever. If I am wrong, please correct me. Hi, Shield Wall. You know what? There will not be spoilers. There will not be spoilers. So worry not, sir. Worry not. Great to see you as always. Yeah, we're going to be going over some things here about dragons. It was a really interesting post. Here, let me do this. Boom. There you go. It is Meteor Advocate Timon. Hello, hello, hello. Now, in many ways, I'm very annoyed with George R. Martin, but I've lately been having to defend him. So please, do not make me defend him today. I don't want to defend him. But no matter how you feel about him, personally, it is objectively true that he is a great writer and he has great insights. So we're going to go over some of them today. And just because someone has great insights, that doesn't even mean you have to agree with them. You have to be objective, though, and truthful. So here we go. Here's not a blog. This is one of those that didn't annoy me. Actually, I thought it was great. Boom. He's talking about the latest episode of House of the Dragon. I trust you all caught the Red Dragon and the Gold, which, frankly, I thought was a very stupid title for an episode. I'm a terrible person. And I'm trying not to be a complete hater, but oh well. The 4th episode of season 2 of House of the Dragon. He said, talks about how people wanted action, and he said, this episode delivered in spades with the Battle of Rook's Rest when dragon met dragon in the skies. True. I've already talked about, though, the faults, the flaws of that battle and the way that they framed it, because they keep framing it in really bad storytelling. I think that they are really feeling the loss of that one guy with the very long name that I'm afraid to pronounce. And they have said, Martin's not, he isn't involved anymore with it. We're on our own. We think that's great, Condell said. So that makes what he says very interesting. Meteor Advocate Timon says, I dropped the Song of Ice and Fire, I dropped the Song of Ice and Fire. Feast of Crows was the last drop for me. For me, he puts too many filler in his stories. Ah, interesting. Perhaps. And the reason why I say perhaps is I'm just now reading the Feast of Crows. I'm one of those weirdos. I have been reading his works wrong. I'm more into the Fire and Blood, the fake history. Oh my gosh, that's just so much fun, and it's great. I stopped reading A Song of Ice and Fire when in 2021 he missed a deadline again, because I really, really thought he was gonna do it, and he's pretty much said so. But him not completing it is what really, truly, truly annoys me about him, and too much filler. Okay, I will be keeping my eyeballs on that. I think that that can especially be frustrating if you're trying to get the story moving through. Now, I do know that was it Feast of Crows and Dance of Dragons are basically one book that they split into two, so you don't see a lot of your favorite characters there. Shield Wall of Dragon says, "It's never a good thing when the author is no longer involved in the show. That's how we got season 6 through 8 of Game of Thrones." Correct. I would also say 5 through 8, because 5 is where it really started to drop off from what I understand, but you're right. I think it's funny, though, that the publicity machine is still not exactly letting people know about that. You have to dig to find it. On the other hand, I can kind of understand why a lot of writers just kind of wash their hands of it once it gets going, because I think it would drive you crazy. Only someone like J.K. Rowling has enough money and power to do what she wishes. It is Jacob Ironside giving you a rose. Thank you very much. Meter Advocate Timon says, also no numbers for the chapters is annoying. I agree. So if you're trying to reference things, it does make life difficult. Taylor Swift is greater than Disney Star Wars. Thank you for being here and for your little waves and things there. I should put in my reading glasses. Oh, there we are. Oh, they're adorable. They're adorable. Shieldwell Dragon says, do you like the dragons in the Game of Thrones universe? Is there another setting that you like the dragons better? Isn't that awesome? Because he goes into it a bit here. Yes, I do. But of course, there is, as Martin even says in this blog post, there is the master. There is the one that is unsurpassed, and that is Tolkien's dragons, of course. Everyone say hello. Hi, I'm not sure I've ever been here. Oh, well, you are most certainly welcome, John Malama. I hope you enjoy the content, and if you like it, please give me a like, share, and a subscribe. Hello, hello. So anyways, so he's talking nicely about the Battle of Rook's Rest. They made some ridiculous changes in there, which made it less cool. I have a video about it where it really describes how it's supposed to go. He says, has there ever been a dragon battle to match it? And he goes through many different versions of it. We're not going to go there just because I'm not. Dragons are mythical, of course. In the real world, the one we live in as opposed to the ones we like to read about, dragons never existed. Those similar creatures can be found in legends all around the world. Some believe that maybe the stories were inspired by the discovery of dinosaur bones by farmers plowing their fields. Regardless of how the stories originated, they have been a huge part of fantasy for centuries, and I have been fond of them for as long as I remember. Yeah. Not only is it in a lot of our Western mythology, definitely it plays a huge role in Chinese culture, etc. And he points out, I'm named after a dragon slayer, Saint George, of course, and he's still a saint, when a lot of other saints were thrown out a couple of decades back. Now, George, I think you know better, or maybe you don't. There were some things with the liturgical calendar, Vatican II, extraordinary form versus ordinary form, though on all the things that he has said that I'm like, come on, man. I'll give him a bit of a pass on this one. Even some Catholics will say that because of the liturgical calendar. But no saints are thrown out. Now, there have been some that upon further research, we have to admit that there may not be a lot of verifiable historical information about their lives, when they lived, are they amalgamations, but That maybe is something for Catholic explaining. Jacob Ironside said, I like dragons that speak. Yes, you see, that's why I really like Smaug, especially. Well, I like you on the chats, Miss Martin. So, oh, why, thank you so much. Shieldwall says, I'm not sure if there are too many dragon battles on screen. No. No, it's inspired by blank that everyone saw in the sky. Perhaps. We know that there's been some alien stuff, and if you watch the TV show Manifest, well, they explain that. Meteor Advocate Timon says, St. George, Jorge, patron of Sport Club Corinthians, Paulista. Yay, yeah, we love St. George the Dragon Slayer. Rather, he's not a dragon. And he's a patron saint of England. And also, the reason why I don't want to get too weird is lately I've been seeing some people confusing Anglicanism with Catholicism and all that. There was a certain situation with a female bishop, and I was like, hey, folks, we don't have female bishops. That's not us. I love Smaug at all. Yes, we love Smaug here at Miss Martin Muses. Shieldwell Dragon says, I like dragons that are intelligent and can speak. D&D dragons are very well done. They have their own language and can use magic. Yes, I have heard of that. My DM, Stieg, has talked about that. Correct. I am not hugely knowledgeable about the Dungeons and Dragons lore. I have only first played it a few years ago in a game. So I'm a newbie. I'm a normie, but I love it. Oh, for crying out loud. See, he has to say snarky stuff. You see, I'm pointing the finger of judgment at you, Martin, and you're making me mad because I'm going to have to defend you in a few sentences. Has nothing to do with papal approval. But aren't you clever? Hardy har har. You see, I'm always a person that says, if you want to get mad at Martin, get mad at him for something he actually says. Okay. I started writing my own dragon tales long before Game of Thrones. The Ice Dragon and The Way of the Cross and the Dragon were two of my best. Oh, okay. Rookie Critic is here. I barely know anything about dragons. Yeah. Well, they're mythical creatures and the like. Dragon is used in biblical literature as a euphemism for the enemy. He is a great dragon. Oh, speaking of which, Chinese dragons. Chinese dragons are wingless and do not breathe fire. They bring good luck. I remember I had a friend in high school that pointed that out in one of our symbology classes. Traditional Western dragons bring mostly fire and death. Dang it! George R. R. Martin and you and I know the same things about dragons. Imagine that. Well, I think it's fun. Traditional Western dragons bring mostly fire and death, but modern fantasists have played with that a lot too. That is true. It talks about Aragon and how to train your dragon and where they're cute. Another cute dragon, Pete and his dragon and Dragon Tales. My nephew was into that when he was a little boy. Shieldwell Dragon says, I read that as dragons have PayPal approval. Well, I'm sure they do as well. Not alien, says John Malama. There is a group of comparative mythologists aligned with Electric Universe theory. Whoa. And it's fascinating, puts a whole new spin on the past. Too much to get into just now, just know it's serious stuff. Okay, I will bookmark that because I know many people do podcasts about interesting things. Electric Universe theory. I would be a liar if I said I knew what I was talking about. I do not, so I will look that up. Meteor Advocate Timon says, Vermithrax pejorative is the best dragon on film, Dragon Slayer. George named one of the dragons in the lore Vermithrax. So, thank you. Thank you very much. I will look into that. Thunderbolts Project. Oh, look at that little dragon. Yeah. And I was not baiting with my title. We are talking about Tolkien here. Tolkien's dragons are always evil, servants of Morgoth and Sauron, which is completely in keeping with Tolkien's worldview. So yes, they were always they were servants of Morgoth and Sauron. I've already said before that in Christianity, Judeo-Christian background, that is for the enemy Satan, and Tolkien incorporated his belief system into his work. There were skin they were akin, rather, to his orcs and trolls. J.R. Tolkien did not do friendly dragons, no. His dragons were intelligent, though. Smaug talks. Yes, he does. He also had a huge hoard of gold, a very traditional dragon trait, and he sleeps on his treasure. Yeah, I've been reading the Feist books where there is a such an awesome dragon going on, and in the Dritz books I'm reading from the Forgotten Realms by R.A. Salvatore, there's a cool dragon. Let's see. The Rookie Critic says, blue eyes, white dragon, red eyes, black dragon, luster dragon, dragons from the Yu-Gi-Oh card game. I hope I said that right. Jacob Iron said, I would like to see a series about the War of Wrath in Middle-earth with dragons. Oh my gosh, yes. But seeing how they are messing stuff up these days, I would rather not have it. No. I mean, look what they're doing with this Rohirrim thing. Oh, horrendous. We were all excited. Oh, well, it's got, Peter Jackson and all them, and it's like, no. That's why I'm saying be careful with the whole Peter Jackson worship. Peter Jackson is not J.R.R. Tolkien. He is not. Jamalama, I love the dragons in the Elder Scrolls cinematics, and why can't we get a movie like that? Oh, gosh, yes. Skyrim, I love him. Have you seen Dragon from the Netflix movie Damsel? Heard about it. The Magician's Apprentice dragon is cool, too. Yes. Shieldwall Dragon says, a dragon with front and hind legs and wings is superior to a dragon where the wings are also the front legs. A four-legged dragon will shred a two-legged dragon in an aerial fight. That's funny because Martin brings this up in a bit, or at least about his dragons. What do you think of the battle on House of the Dragon episode 4? Well, I said to the beginning, the graphics were great. Some of it was good, but they messed it up. When we took it apart, we shredded it. Yeah, Jacob, yes. Shieldwall Dragon says, it was okay. I wish they would have had a little ground fighting as well. Yes. And they messed up what Rhaenys did. This was Rhaenys' moment. It was her redemption moment, and they messed it up. It didn't make sense, story-wise. Visual-wise, it looked great. Story-wise, it did not. And a discussion for another day, going back to Tolkien. Some people are trying to rewrite history. Like, Tolkien didn't really mean this. It's like, sure, yeah, Tolkien was that dumb. He pretended he was writing what he didn't want to write. And no, I'm not talking about George R.R. Martin. I'm seeing this on X, and it's quite annoying. It's coming from Rings of Power shills and even from people that claim to be pro-Tolkien. No, if you want to be pro-Tolkien, you got to be pro-Tolkien. He was who he was, and he was not ashamed of who he was and what he believed. So, let's continue. That's my little soapbox for today. Before Peter Jackson's Smaug, the best dragon on film was Vermitrak, Pejorative, and Dragon Slayer. Okay, so he does talk about Peter Jackson's Smaug. At first, I nearly lost my crap. I'm like, it's not as J.R.R. Tolkien's, but he's talking about the film. Smaug was one of the best parts of The Hobbit. How they executed, of course, was stupid, but that's another story for another day. 2 legs and 2 wings. Dangerous, fire-breathing. A flyer, does not talk, does not hoard gold. An inspiration for all dragon lovers. Okay, gosh, I need to see some of these movies. I've heard a lot about Dragon Slayer. I need to watch that breakdown video. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It wasn't on mine. It was on Sporking's. It was on the live stream and also on, oh my gosh, the name just went out of my head. I'll find it. Nerdtorial Lightform. Maybe I'll put a video together, but Sadly, it was not mine, so I don't have the permission to edit it. Reign of Fire is a cool movie with dragons in modern times. John Malama says, I loved episode 4, but curious to see those arguments. Yeah. Well, just to throw this out there, what was supposed to happen was Aegon and Aemond were working together. This is in the source material. They laid a trap for Rhaenys. So when Rhaenys showed up, the two of them went against her, and she very heroically said, "Okay, kids, let's do this." And she kamikazed herself into both of them, and the three of them spun around and boom, hit the ground. Aemond was able to escape, but Rhaenys and Aegon did not. So it was a great moment for her. In the TV show, they had it that Aegon was not working with Aemond. They had all that ridiculous stuff, and then they had Aemond actually take out Aegon. So, I did do a video actually on what it is in the book, but it was before I saw the episode. Isn't the Balrog a dragon too, or different? It's different. Love Ring of Fire. All right. A lot of these things. I will love Dragon Slayer. Okay, I have been told to do so. Yes, thank you, chat. Why do they bring in why do they do the thing that they did in the show? Because they think they can do better, apparently. They have this narrative that they keep trying to show, almost like everything's an accident, everything's different. It's almost like they're a little bit obsessed in this season from saying, "Ha ha ha, what you read in Fire and Blood wasn't really what happened." We saw the same thing, how they messed up Blood and Cheese. They mostly got the Cargill twins correct. They messed up a lot of Aegon, and they're really gonna mess up something coming up. Big time. They know better, and that's where George gets a little shady at the end of this here. "Oh, I asked, that's way better. Damn sorry I asked, that's way better." Oh, yes, it was, and of course, they didn't have Rhaenys doing that ridiculous stuff where she killed everybody at the coronation. Alright, so let's continue. Okay, he talks about Dragonheart. Oh, look how cute he is. Oh, shut up. We love Sean Connery. Now, getting a little deeper into his work, the Song of Ice and excuse me, the Song of Ice and Fire set up to blend the wonder of epic fantasy with the grittiness of the best historical fiction. Yes. The War of the Roses meets dragons. That's why I love it, because I'm such a monarch historian kind of a thing, though not a complete expert. Okay, I do not claim expertise. In my studies, in my BA and all that, it was Renaissance Reformation studies. But it's pretty close. There is magic in my world, yes, but much less of it than one gets in most fantasy. Tolkien's Middle-earth was relatively low magic too, and I took my cue from the master. Yes. Now, the reasoning behind it is very different, but yes, he is correct. And can we just pause a minute to say he calls him the master? There's this fake narrative going on out there in Twitter, it's rage baiting, that's trying to pit them against each other. First of all, Tolkien's dead, so how could he? But no, Martin has never been anything but he's the master. He wrote the greatest book I've ever read. He wrote definitely the top 5 books of the 20th century. Don't compare me to him. It's not fair. But people take out little snippets where some people have said in interviews, well, how about this or that? He says, well, I wanted this with Aragorn. So in his work, then he brings in some of the taxes, etc. But people just snitched it out. That's why every time you see Tolkien and George R. R. Martin mostly in the same sentence, it is rage bait. And notice they never give the source. There is a reason. This is where I said I was going to have to defend George R. R. Martin. He completely has always said Tolkien is the master. Tolkien is better than him. that he would be nowhere without Tolkien. Anything else is where people have asked him what makes it different. I like Dragonheart, but the direct-to-video sequels were not that good. Okay. Balrogs are Meyer like Gandalf. Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, everyone loves the lore so much. I just really love it. Yeah. This goes with all rage bait. I'm gonna be doing a rage bait musings eventually. If there's not a source, there's a reason. Okay? And please, especially as we're coming up on Rings of Power, people, don't fall into the trap. It has to be based in truth, even if you don't like Martin. In many ways, I don't like him, but you got to be truthful about him. So, Tolkien's Middle Earth was relatively low magic too, and I took my cue from the master. Let's continue. I wanted Westeros to feel real, to evoke the Crusades and the Hundred Years' War and the War of the Roses as much as it did J.R.R. Tolkien with his hobbits and magic rings. What a good paragraph. He also has the anarchy in there. The Dance of Dragons is very much anarchy. I have a video about the anarchy, a historical video. Yeah, J.R. Tolkien with his hobbits and magic rings. Now watch people try to take this out of context and say he's criticizing J.R. Tolkien because they'll leave out the whole context. Yeah, every time he says a comparison between his works, people try to take it out of context. But yeah, this is good stuff. This is probably one of the best blogs he's done in quite a while because we've all known that he's done some really ridiculous ones. I would have dragons, yes, in part because of my dear friend, the late Phyllis Eisenstein, a marvelous fantasist and science fiction writer in her own right. I'm going to skip ahead, but I wanted my dragons to be as real and believable as such a creature could ever be. Now, this is where he gets into some shade, which I like. I like this. Okay, they're talking about stuff. Yeah, I have to give credit where credit is due. Correct. Yes. Hmm. And his insights are very interesting because what he's saying is, I'm a child of Vietnam. I'm a child of the 60s. He's a hippie, obviously got a very different view. Martin is a lapsed Catholic. Tolkien was super Catholic, living from almost another century. So he said, so of course it's different. So when he saw certain things that he maybe wanted in Lord of the Rings, he very masterfully brought it into his own. I always say to compare, it's like if I were to go around and complain that we didn't get a big Eowyn and Faramir wedding, which I would have loved. Say I wanted to see Eowyn and Faramir have a big wedding with flowers in her hair and the big feast and all that. And then people were to say, oh, she's criticizing Tolkien. No, that's what I wanted to see. So yes, if I ever did a fan fiction, it would be nothing but Eowyn and Faramir. Here we go. We got some shade coming up. This is where it gets beautiful. Okay, enough of my ranting about rage bait. I designed my dragons with a lot of care. They fly and breathe fire. Yes, those traits seemed essential to me. Here we go. They have 2 legs, not 4, never 4, and 2 wings. Now, I'm not a big dragon nerd, if you will. I won't lose my crap if they do that. But if it is your world and this is how you designed it, I'm totally on his side here. Shield Wall of Dragons is taking issue. What's this? 2 legs and never 4 crap. I think you can see in this next sentence why he's saying this. Shieldwall Dragon says, yeah, no animal breathing fire, so extra legs is not a deal breaker. No. In his context here, large wings. He's going somewhere with this. And he talks about a lot of fantasy dragons have these itty bitty wings that would never get such a creature off the ground, and only 2 legs. The wings are the forelegs. He has boldened that. 4-legged dragons exist only in heraldry. No animal that has ever lived on Earth has 6 limbs. Birds have 2 legs and 2 wings. But sorry, bats the same. Ditto pteranodons and other flying dinosaurs, etc. I'm feeling very judged because I'm sure I mispronounced that. I would have kindergartners correct me if I said a dinosaur wrong. Yeah, let it fly because I've just defended Martin. If you're pissed at him, go for it because he may be using hyperbole here because I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, no animal beings. Yes. No animals breathe fire, so no extra legs, no deal breaker. I said that again. Whoa, 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 LOL. I agree with large wings. Yes, we can agree with large wings. Correct me if I'm wrong. In the comments, tell me, but I really don't care about how many legs. But he is pointing out that they had it in heraldry. This is where we're going to be going on with because he's going to relate it to some things he's not happy with on Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. And he talks about medieval heraldry, etc. And he points out no one has ever seen a dragon. Of course, neither creature actually existed save in legend. So there is a certain amount of arbitrary quality to this distinction. Dragons do exist in the world of Westeros, however. I'm going to mispronounce this. Werewolves 2 down in Sotheros. So my own heralds did not have that excuse. Ergo, in my books, the Targaryen sigil has 2 legs, as it should. Okay. So he's saying in his world, it's 2 legs, and I'm gonna die on this hill. Now, let him have it of the 4 legs on other things, but on this one, I will defend him because he is saying in his world, why would any Westerosi ever put 4 legs on a dragon when they could look at the real thing? Yeah, because there are real dragons there. Okay. Now, he says, the shows got it right. Sorry, rather, half right, both of them. Game of Thrones gave us the correct 2-legged sigils for the first 4 seasons and most of the 5th. But when Dany's fleet hove into view, all the sails had 4-legged dragons. So what we're seeing here is he's talking about inconsistency. In the first 4 seasons, when he was more involved, they had 2 dragons, and then they had 4 dragons. Sorry, rather 4-legged. 4-legged dragons, 2-legged dragons, good, 4-legged bad. So this is just within the world. Throw out the books, who cares? Within the world, this makes it inconsistent. Someone got sloppy, I guess. Ouch. Ouch. Or someone opened a book on heraldry and just enough of it to muck it all up. So he's criticizing here. Wow. A little knowledge is a dangerous thing. A couple of years on, House of the Dragon decided the heraldry should be consistent with Game of Thrones, but they went with the bad sigil rather than the good one. Well, Zax is here. Shield Wall. Jacob says, "I can have as many legs on my dragon as I want, George." Yes, darn right. A two-legged dragon is totally acceptable, but a four-legged one is superior is all I'm saying. No, and like I said, have at it. Oh, Steve is here. Hello. Let me make sure I got everyone. Zach's, yay! He gave me a rose. Thank you. I love roses, and well, Jacob had given me one too. Everyone's saying hello to each other. Shieldwell Dragon says, "Well, the fact that they left a coffee cup in a scene having messed up heraldry is the least of their problems." Yeah. Yes. Hey, but I think he's also bringing it up because House of the Dragons has messed it up. He's not being very nice to House of the Dragons. So here we go. Right? Wrong. Oh, my doped up cat is upset by some thunder. And he goes on about Valerian dragons. They're different. They are relatively intelligent, but they are still beasts. His dragons, rather. My dragons do not talk. They are relatively intelligent, but they are beasts. My goodness, I'll tell you what. I'm team dragon. I was so sad on the TV show when they showed that. They bond with men. Now check this out. Check this out, kids, because we were arguing about this. Not arguing, debating maybe, or trying to figure it out. They bond with men, some men, and the why and how of that and how it came to be will eventually be revealed in more detail in The Winds of Winter and A Dream of Spring, and some in Blood and Fire. Septon Barth got much of it right. Aha! So I need to go back and reread some Septon Barth. What I want to point out again, they bond with men, some men, and the why and how of that and how it came to be will eventually be revealed in more detail in The Winds of Winter and A Dream of Spring. So that's going to answer the question we have about who can ride a dragon, who can claim a dragon. So release the book. Release the book. Oh, did I catch you, Steek? Yeah, Steek's here. Release the book. Maybe I'll say it one more time. Release the book. Finish the book. Quit messing around. This relates to Nettles. Possible spoiler for House of the Dragon. So if you're trying to remain unspoiled, maybe skip away for a few seconds. But in Fire and Blood, there is a magnificent character named Nettles, who we are not certain is truly a dragon seed. She trains the dragon. She bonds with the dragon sheep stealer by every day feeding him. Like it's the same way that you try to make friends with an animal. You want to make friends with a doggy? Give him treats. My cat, who is psychotic and possibly sociopathic and evil and a minion of Satan, God bless his little soul, is treats. Treats is a way that you can make friends with him. So it's possible that is the case. Maybe we're going to learn more about that in Winds of Winter and the whole argument about sea smoke. Well, that's a TV problem, not this. It's a Nettles issue. I can't wait. Finish the book. The problem with the TV show, one of the things that I think is going to make everyone lose their crap is Nettles. They're not going to do Nettles, which is unbelievably ridiculous. Nettles is one of the coolest characters ever. And it has a huge impact. She has a huge impact on the whole thing. Okay, everyone's still saying hi. Kenobi says, "I am sure that he had told the I am sure he has told the show writer who can ride dragons or not. They ignored it. Correct. Well, it'll especially be so if they leave out Nettles. They're trying so hard to make Rhaenyra good when all these characters are supposed to be gray. It's war. They all do awful things at it. So, anyways, into spoilers. It's ridiculous. Shieldwell Dragon says, when they say men, that is referring to man as a species and not a gender, correct? Yes, because obviously women can. I mean, look at all the women dragon riders. Ha! I'll bet you he's going to get garbage about that. He's going to get in trouble. But it goes along with his world if you're talking the medieval world. Like wolves and bears and lions, dragons can be trained but never entirely trained. They will always be dangerous. Some are wilder and more willful than others. They are individuals. They have personalities, and they often reflect the personalities of their writers thanks to the bond they share are. Wait, is that a correct sentence? And they often reflect the personalities of the writer thanks to the bond they share are. They do not care a whit about gold or gems, no more than a tiger would, unless maybe their writer was obsessed with the shiny stuff, and even then. Huh. Okay. Dragons need food. They need water too, but they have no gills. They need to breathe. Some say that Smaug slept for 60 years before the Lonely Mountains, before Bilbo and the dwarves woke him up. The dragons born of Valyria cannot do that. They are creatures of fire, and fire needs oxygen. A dragon could dip into the ocean to scoop up a fish, perhaps, but they'll fly right up again. If held underwater too long, they would drown, just like any other land animals. Yeah, see, this is good stuff. Zeke says, Nettles not being in it won't cause much of an uproar. 99% of the audience has not consumed the source material. They're there for WoW dragons, nothing more. Yeah, I guess the audience won't know. But okay. I know some people, including me, that are going to lose it. And it could be a game changer from all the people that have, for some reason, been trying to defend this, trying to pretend that Ryan Condal is not another Benioff and Wise. But for those of you that don't know, that Nettles not only is a really cool character, but she's also canonically dark-skinned. So if they cut out a dark-skinned character, well, first of all, it just makes it BS that they're saying that this is the real way everything happened. Of course, we all know that at this point. My dragons are creatures of the sky. They fly, they can and will hunt their own prey, but they are also territorial. As creatures of the sky, they like mountaintops and volcanic mountains best of all. They are creatures of fire and the cold, dank caverns that other fantasists' house their pets in are not for mine. Okay, these are creatures of fire, and the cold, dank caverns that other fantasists house their pets in are not for mine. Man-made dwellings like the stables of Dragonstone, the tower tops of the Valyrian Freehold, and the Dragon Pit of King's Landing are acceptable and often come with men bringing them food. If those are not available, young dragons will use their own lairs and defend them fiercely. Yeah, he's going somewhere with this. Yes, he is precious. He talks about his his dragons are creatures of the sky. They fly and can cross mountains and plains, cover hundreds of miles, but they don't unless their riders take them there. Here we go. They are not nomadic. And he talks about Valeria here. 40 dragon riding families and hundreds of dragons amongst them. But aside from our Targaryens, all of them stayed close to the freehold and the lands of the long summer. They would sometimes visit other places, that's what he's saying, but they would never stay there permanently. Think about it. If dragons were nomadic, they would have overrun half of Essos, and the Doom would only have killed a few of them. Yeah, he's getting there. He's about ready to hit them hard. I think before episode 5. I think episode 5 is where we're going to find out that they really break canon with his story. It's going to be fun, actually. I will pop some popcorn. I think he cannot directly criticize the show, so he's not referencing it, but we all know what's going on. Similarly, the dragons of Westeros seldom wander far from Dragonstone. Elsewise, after 300 miles, we would have dragons all over the realm, and every noble house would have a few. See, this is making me think that maybe you don't have to have Valyrian stuff, and that this is what's going to be revealed in the Winds of Winter. So finish it! The 3 wild dragons mentioned in Fire and Blood have lairs on Dragonstone. That is true. The rest can be found in the Dragon Pit of King's Landing or in deep caverns under the Dragon Mount. Luke flies to Arrax on Storm's End and Jace to Winterfell, yes, but the dragons would not have flown there on their own, save under very special circumstances. So their riders took them there. I would say it's the same with Queen Alysanne. Here we go. You won't find dragons hunting the Riverlands or the Reach or the Vale, or roaming the Northlands in the mountains of Dorne. I think his mentioning of the Vale is very telling, and he covers his butt by mentioning other places. Because it's in the Vale where they're going to mess things up. And then the punch. Dun, dun, dun. Fantasy needs to be grounded. It is not simply a license to do anything you like. Smaug and Toothless may both be dragons, but they should never be confused. Ignore canon, and the world you've created comes apart like tissue paper. This you can take to the bank as a real quote from George R.R. Martin and source it. Ignore canon, and the world you've created comes apart like tissue paper. This, in context with everything else he's been saying, says a million words. John Malama says, for me, Dragons in House of the Dragon is just icing on the cake. Yes. And no. But in this case, if they continue on doing it well, you'll see. I don't know if you've read the works. Maybe I missed that, but I don't want to spoil. Shane Nolan says, remember the Lannisters wanted a dragon egg, and they were concerned after Fair Isle. I kind of suck, so help me out with that. I would say I'm pretty much a normie when it comes to the books, except for Fire and Blood. I think I've got Fire and Blood pretty much down. And if this isn't Fire and Blood, then I just made a fool of myself. But it's a huge history book, and I need to figure it out. Let me check something here, if I'm correct. But I'm just going to leave this up here. I'm going to take this one home. I'm going to be, very, very emotional about this in a very cranky way. This goes along with everything we've been seeing, especially Rings of Power. He mentioned Rings of Power earlier. Yes, he did. Among others. People say, and I'm stealing Steeg's tweet about it. Check out Steeg's timeline on this. You know, when people say it doesn't matter, it's fantasy. No, it does matter. Things have to be consistent within the world you've created. And I think that's why I like this essay that George wrote. He's acknowledging, okay, if in your story you have the cute little talking dragon, that's fine, but that's within yours. And he says, Smaug and Toothless may both be dragons, but they should never be confused. Yes, they're two different dragons. They're not the same. Ignore canon and the world you've created comes apart like tissue paper. And I think that's what we're going to see happen because he just laid out his lore of dragon claiming and dragons, how they work in his world. And we know what they're going to do in House of the Dragon. So we're almost 1,000% positive. So that's that. That's this particular thing. Steve, let me know if you want to hop on. I'm going to continue with a few more of his not a blogs. Shane Nolan says, Makers are niece and bride in The Queen of the Nest, Rhaenyra. Okay. Thank you. The it's just fantasy argument makes world building, a magic system, lore, and history pointless. Precisely. I mean, I know we've said this a million times. Do your own thing then. Create your own world. And if things are different, if things aren't necessarily completely consistent in your world, well, who cares? It's your world. But if you're adapting someone else's work or okay, maybe what we have with Star Wars, where these new people are coming in and messing up the lore. It's George Lucas's. George Lucas owns Star Wars. J.R.R. Tolkien owns his Legendarium, the whole Legendarium. Look, and these Rings of Power people are coming in and changing that. And George R.R. Martin owns A Song of Ice and Fire and everything that comes with it. All right, let me see if I can share this. Yeah, we're going to go into one of his other ones because he did talk about explicitly what they did with Blood and Cheese. I mean, what a mess. Imagine messing up thinking you can outright for crying out loud. The Red Wedding. I mean, can you imagine if they had done that? Imagine if they felt like they could have done the Red Wedding better and changed it up. That's what they did. These people. My gosh. All right, we're in a bit of a transition here. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We're going to go to another previous, not a blog. Oops. I think it says here. Yeah, he's been writing a lot. Now, I have a theory about why he's been writing so much is because he is oh, there we go. I want to get to the Blood and Cheese. I think he's flying. I do a lot of writing when I fly. All right, here we go. This is where he first breaks his little silence about House of the Dragon. Boom. He talks about really cool stuff about how the the sets and everything are really awesome when he visited them. And then he throws in a jab. I could easily have gotten lost, just like Blood and Cheese did. Yeah, because that did not happen in the work. He's talked about how he got a sneak peek of these 2 episodes. And he says, "What a great way to start a season." Okay, that's fair. That's nice. The directing was superb. Game of Thrones veteran directed the first episode and Claire Kilner the second. Both of them did a magnificent job, and I cannot say enough about the acting. So he is praising the actors, which is fair, and he is also praising the directing, which is also fair, and the acting. I mean, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I'm late, says the Dega Outlaw. No, a wizard is never late. I did my dragons differently. Yes, and Dega Outlaw has some books, so go get them, everyone. Yes. Every author has their own little takes on that, and that's what Martin was talking about. Just stay consistent, especially if you're adapting them. He points out they aren't even consistent within their own work, for crying out loud. Emma Darcy has only one line in A Son for a Son, but they do much with their eyes and face. You see, this is where the grammar is confusing, and I'll just be nice and say the grammar. Her grief for her slain son is palpable. Talking about the actor in the first part and the character in the second. He got grief over this and he corrected it, but that's never good enough. In other words, he's praising Emma Darcy. I agree. She is amazing. And then Tom Glenn Carney brings Aegon alive in ways we have not seen before. Darned right. That's why, I mean, in episode 1 and episode 2, he was so awesome. He's more than a villain here. He shows us the king's rage, his pain, his fears and doubts, his humanity. Yes. Amen and hallelujah. Reese fans, Iphans fans, I hope I pronounced that correctly, have been splendid. Oh, sorry. Reese Iphans has, never mind. Otto Hightower has been amazing, and he exceeded himself in Rhaenyra the Cruel. True. We have missed him in episodes 3 and 4. He has messed it up. Rhaenyra the Cruel. His scene with King Aegon and Kristen Cole after the rat catchers are hanged just crackles with wit, tension, drama, a performance that cries out for awards attention. Darned right. All of them were amazing. And poor actor who plays Kristen Cole, how they've messed up his character. Oh my goodness. But that was great. I remember being enthralled and being, I love these people. I love these actors. Matt Smith and Olivia Cook and all those guys were wonderful as well. They were. Poor Matt Smith is just suffering from bad writing. Oh gosh. I've been calling it Days of Our Lives. Making it all about the marriage. They said, we want to make it all about the marriage. And they are cutting out what Aegon is supposed to be. Oh, sorry, rather what Damon is supposed to be doing. He's supposed to be fighting and doing all sorts of stuff in the burning mill. I do have videos about that. I'm going to mistake the names. Twins were terrific as the Kingsguard twins, correct. And the climactic sword fight is right up there with the Mountain and Red Viper of Dorne and Brienne's fight with Jaime Lannister. Yes, I agree. I think it was magnificent. That was obviously, that's the best part. In hindsight and looking at it, well done. Well done. That is also a case of where they took the source. They took the source material. Because sometimes people say, well, there's many different sources. It's like, yes, but there's several different versions. They don't choose any of them. But they did with the Cargill twins. They did a nice mix of what the different writers had to say, the fictional writers, the unreliable narrators had to say about this, and made it really poignant. The problem is they did some really stupid stuff with Kristen Cole, but It didn't ruin it. Yes, Thea Sabin did great acting. Absolutely great acting as Helena Targaryen, Aegon's doomed haunted queen and mother to his children. I'm concerned, though, they haven't been following her trajectory. That's going to be a concern. Ah, look who's here. It is none other than all the way from the future, the man, the Viking himself. It is Steve Kenobi.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you what, George, in just what a week has given us a lot of good stuff.
Well, you know when he's having a go at the how they don't stick with lore and how it has ripple effects and actually breaks the whole canon, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
You can apply that to a lot of things, not just House of the Dragons, right? It
Mm-hmm.
Rings of Power, The Witcher, Disney, Star Wars, what have you, all of it. It's the world building and the canon, you know, and the lore
Mm-hmm.
is basically a framework that keeps the picture in place, the picture being the story. If you remove the framework, that picture is going to fall off the wall,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, like he said, it falls apart like paper.
Yeah. And another way to look at it is, the world building and all that is the foundation that every fantasy writer and sci-fi writer really builds the story on. If you don't have any world building, the story is going to be a mess
Mm-hmm.
because the audience won't know how that world works. So if you smash up the foundation, you can't build anything solid on it. You know?
Yeah. And the ripple effects, we're seeing this with House of the Dragon already, that
Yeah.
every change has a ripple effect. Now in season 1, well, the main change that they made by making Alicent and Rhaenyra the same age, that had ripple effects. But for the most part, what they did in season 1 didn't screw it up too badly. But it's like in season 2, they were like, hold my beer. Watch us
Well,
make
I
decision after decision that's going to have a bad ripple effect.
I called this on Sporking's channel that because people, yeah, they're sticking to the books now. This looks great. I'm like, yeah, that's what usually happens. Once a new fantasy show starts, they'll stick very closely to the source material because then the fans will give them validity
Mm-hmm.
by saying all over, oh yeah, they're sticking to the books. This is great. They really care, right? So it's free marketing.
Yeah.
Usually with hacks and stuff like that, they'll start changing things after season 1 is done because then they have the fans on board, which is an inbuilt audience, really, right?
Yep.
And it happened with The Witcher. That one was fairly close to the source material, season 1, and then season 2 happens, and it's like, well, okay then. Uh,
Yep.
Almost nothing of it was in the books.
Yeah. And they're obviously doing this here.
Yeah,
The hubris, though, it's very much Dan and Dave. And I just don't know why many people are not calling it out. They think they
because
can do better. And
it's because most people who are watching the show have not read the books.
but
That's
I've been
what it
seeing
is.
people that have read the books shilling for
Oh,
them.
yeah. Well, people will show if a bigger YouTuber likes it.
Yeah. Well, I'll leave that there. Adiga Outlaw says world building also plays a huge role in making emotional attachments. Darn right, because you feel like you
Yes,
live in the world. Mm-hmm.
and it also affects the backstories and motivations of the characters. Because if one of the main characters lives in a country that was just 20 years ago got really wrecked by war, right?
Uh-huh.
Then that person might want revenge for something, or his whole perspective might be different. But
Mm-hmm.
um, if there's nothing, then good luck writing the background of a character that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and them messing up dragons with Targaryens, who are known as the Dragon Riders, at least in this world, that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, the dragons are at the heart of the story. So
Hmm. And they have to be internally consistent. Now,
yeah,
he praises a change here, which is where sometimes I begrudgingly have to keep giving him credit. Like, for example, he talks about what they do with Helena. He talks about her in the book as a happy young woman, cheerful, kindly, adored by the small folk, a dragon rider since the age of 12. Now, the show has not shown her as a dragon rider, which is unfortunate. And her dragon is Dreamfire. And that none of the strangeness she displays in the show is evidence in the book, nor her gift of prophecies. These were born in the writer's room. But once I met the show's version of Helena, I could hardly take issue. Fia Sabin's Helena is richer and more fascinating character than the one I created in Fire and Blood. And in Rhaenyra the Cruel, you can hardly take your eyes off of her. So it shows that he's not against changes that they have made. And he has previously also praised, oh, there it is, King Viserys, a change that they did. So he is not necessarily, but I would argue that when he's talking about Viserys and some of the stuff with Helena, it's stuff that they added, not necessarily things that they took away.
yeah, it doesn't alter the story. It just spices up the character more.
Mm-hmm.
It's in a way that won't really affect how the story plays out at all.
Yep. And then he talks about the dog. Everyone was talking more about the dog in After Blood and Cheese than the child, which tells you something. But he was in favor of the dog. He says, I am not usually a fan of screenwriters adding characters to the source material when adapting a story, especially not when the source material is mine. But that dog was brilliant. Okay, so more power to him that he is giving praise where praise is due. But again, talking about things that don't necessarily change. And he's talking about the presence of the dog reminded us that even the worst of men, the vile and the venal, can love and be loved. That dog I didn't, but someone else did. I am glad of that. So, yeah, as we were saying, it has to do with fundamental changes in the world building, like what we were talking about, that he was complaining. And then he goes here. The only part of the show that is drawing criticism is the conclusion of the Blood and Cheese storyline, which ending was powerful, I thought. A gut punch, especially for viewers who had never read the Red Fire and Blood. So he's acknowledging a truth that if you were just watching the TV show, yes, it did give you some horror. For
Yeah,
those who have read
and he
the
goes,
book, however,
especially the people who hadn't read. So
mm-hmm.
he's kind of poking a little bit at, there was more in the book.
Yeah. Well, and this is where the criticism comes in, but he has to be clever about it. I'm almost 1,000% positive he has a non-disparagement contract. He says, for those who had read the book, however, well, there's a lot to be said about that, but this is not the place for me to say it. The issues are too complicated. Somewhere down the line, I will do a separate post about all the issues raised by Blood and Cheese and Maelor the Missing. There's a lot to say. Boom! That's what we've been saying. It's huge that they didn't have Maelor, and that what they did with Blood and Cheese, that was fundamentally changing something. that's going to make a big deal. When he says Maelor the Missing. Hashtag. Let's hashtag that, kids.
It's like not having, Joffrey or something, or Tommen
Mm-hmm.
in the Game of Thrones show.
Yeah, exactly. Boom. Yeah, we actually jinx Shane Nolan. Yes, because it changes the succession, and this is a show about contentions about successions, and what do? They mess it up, and the whole thing with Maelor in that scene means something. It means something huge about how it all unfolds and the horror of it. So he does say, if you're only just watching the show, yes, especially for viewers who had never read Fire and Blood, but for those who have read the book, yeah, he's acknowledging that we were right with what we were complaining about. So there, kids. Alberto, forgive me, I will probably mispronounce your last name. Maelor is significant in the story. Remember Darren's motivations. Yeah, well, precisely. It's huge. Maelor is now the heir to the throne. In the TV show, now the heir to the throne is Aemond, something they haven't even acknowledged yet. And so when they had it in the show that he tried to kill the king, he was literally trying to usurp the crown.
Well, not just that, they had him do it in front of thousands of witnesses. So they turned him into an idiot. And the other thousands of people who saw it are also idiots.
Yeah. Alberto says, I also want to see more Sunfire. Same. Just the little part we got where Aegon goes down to the dragon pit to get Sunfire, and Sunfire kind of nudges him, and you see him smile. It's like one of the few points where you see true joy on the face of Aegon, and very much like a puppy or a cat. Like, for example, my cat. Well, I'm almost, and my other cat who has passed on. And that's one way they show affection. They'll come and give you a little headbutt. It's like, aw, hi, and you put your head with them. So I thought that was very moving. And yes, we wanted more Sunfire. And are they going to pull it out of their butt, though, Stieg, that maybe they said, we couldn't see what happened with Aemond and them because, dragons, they were way up high.
How the hell do you miss that, though? I bet you everyone was looking at the dragons. And it's easy to see one of them flying and fry two others.
I guess. I just don't know. It causes a lot of trouble. Also, it took away the kill shot from Rhaenys, which really, really annoyed me. I mean, they already messed her up in a way that you cannot repair it from episode 9 in season 1. And then they go and do some nonsensical things to not make her the big hero of that battle. They did it well in the sense of the actress. Oh my gosh, the actress was amazing. It did make you feel, especially the dragon, when her dragon was killed. Oh my gosh, it was horrible. Oh, it was so sad. So they do it well there. But yeah, everything that you said about canon and changes. People sometimes will gaslight you and say, well, you have to change it to get sick. Yes, but fundamental things, that's the difference. And I think that is where Martin is quite masterfully pointing out the differences.
Yeah, and he also pointed out, I think it was in the other one, that he took lessons from Tolkien, who did exactly the same. Tolkien stuck to his own lore like a hawk.
Yes.
Yeah.
And calls him the master. You might have missed my little rant about that. I gave some defenses of George R.R. Martin and how he views Tolkien, and he understands Tolkien very well.
Martin did a video where he, when they were going to vote for, the best fantasy book of the previous decade or whatever it was. No,
I
no,
think it was a
previous,
century.
yeah, yeah, century. Martin's like sitting there bragging about Tolkien all over the place and telling people to vote for Tolkien over his book.
Yeah. It's a he says it's better than what he wrote. So when people try to say, thinking they're doing a win against Martin, where it's like, Tolkien was a better writer. Well, guess who says that Tolkien was a better writer? George R. Martin. It's like
Yeah, he's
he
actually
says it
on their
all the time.
side. So it's like, people go, "Oh yeah, I just owned Martin. I proved Tolkien's better." Well, you don't own someone when the person's agreeing with you in the first place.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and I have issues with Martin, but he has shown a lot of humility as far as that's concerned. If it's possible for someone like him to show humility, because you have to have a certain degree of confidence that often bleeds over into arrogance to do what he does. But
I've
yes,
actually,
I did.
I actually haven't seen him be arrogant or anything, or use his sales number as a win or nothing.
Yeah, he doesn't do owning. To be fair, I'll give you that point because he really doesn't go there. It's mainly some of his political stuff, but
No,
that's not fair of me to compare.
that interview where that feminist lady was accusing the work of being sexist and racist and stuff, and he just calmly sat down and dismantled it.
He also pointed out, hey, that was a TV show, that people often confuse the TV show with the actual work that he has done. Um, so this is another blog post. This is the final one where he talks some shade. He's doing a bunch of traveling, and he goes, the writer's room for House of the Dragon season 3 is also meeting in London, but I have no plans to attend.
No, because he's not involved with the writing
Mm-hmm.
anymore. So they've actually done the same thing they did with the other show. They used him for as long as he was useful, and then, yeah, you're out.
Yep. I think that's his way of throwing a little bit of shade, but also saying, shut up, people, because people even keep saying that he's involved or he signed off on it or this is the real version of his work that
Yeah,
he did. And it's like, no, he's saying, no, I'm not involved. And, you know, they're doing their own thing. And I'm doing mine where he's talking about the new show for Duncan Egg.
a
Yes, you
lot of
can tell, Shane. Yes, you can tell that he is not involved.
a lot of people tend to think writers who have written books are involved with are very much involved with TV shows and stuff because they're listed as writers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing: they're listed as writers because they wrote the book.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yes.
automatically get a writer's credit for that because, um, let's say George Lucas, he gets writing credits for all the Disney shows, even though he hasn't written a word of them, right?
Correct. Yes.
So that's because if they use the word TIE fighter, then he created that word back in the day, so he has technically written for the show because they use the word he has created, even though he
Yes.
did it almost 50 years ago. So yeah,
Yeah. It's
I mean,
copyright reasons and the fact that they own it, but
yeah,
yes, he did not write it.
he's actually listed as a writer on Star Wars Monopoly.
Yeah.
He has official writing credits for that. So I'm like, I don't think he was involved making Star Wars Monopoly, you
No.
know. But the fact that the stormtroopers are the pawns, that means he created the stormtroopers. So
Yeah.
he has technically written for the game.
Yep. So keep that in mind, friends and neighbors. And he is being very cautious. You can see him tiptoeing around what he cannot come out and say.
Yeah.
Now let's give him some crap. Everyone, I've defended Martin sometimes in this stream, but here we go. He's going to go visit his publisher in Britain. Let me say a few words about that, though. Last year, when I mentioned seeing my Voyager editor in London, the internet went nuts, throwing up all sorts of theories about how this meant that Winds of Winter was done and a huge announcement was at hand. Sorry, guys, but no. And I guess I can't completely fault him here when he says, well, first of all, whenever anyone says, calm down, please, I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah, because you're not
That's a
supposed
little
to say
snark,
calm down to women.
especially, yes. But also, well, sometimes men aren't used to hearing that either. But yes, it is a bit of an insult. So, Martin, I am pointing the finger of judgment at you. But then he says something here. When Winds of Winter is done, the word will not trickle out. There will be a big announcement. Where and when, I cannot say. So, actually, to be fair, he doesn't actually say here that it's not finished. I think he said that just because I'm seeing the editor in London, that means that a huge announcement at hand. He says, sorry, guys, but no, that's not how it works. So that just because he's meeting with editors, that doesn't mean it. But he is saying when and where I cannot say. So I guess that's not a no. Or help me out here. Am I coping?
It's more like just calm down. Doesn't necessarily mean what you think or assume it means. I don't know.
Okay. So
It'll be out when
so
it's
far,
out. I'm having fun reading all kinds of other stuff anyway, so it's not like he's the only writer out there.
no. But come on, man, I'm reading your stuff.
Yeah. You know what it says at the back of book 4? Game of Thrones?
No?
He's apologizing for not having all the characters in it, and he promises, you don't have to wait too long to find out what happens to the next, the other people in the story, because A Dance with Dragons will be out next year. And then that was in 2004. Dance with Dragons was not published until until 2011.
2011. It was, I think it was 5-6 years, which was not cool. But compared to the
No.
wait for this one, oh my gosh, we're getting on 15 years. Like if you had a baby,
Yeah.
then after the Dance with Dragons book came out, that kid would be in high school now.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. And
He
needs
shouldn't
to just
have
do it.
he shouldn't have let HBO do the show until he was done with the books, I think.
Yeah. Or he should have found some discipline somewhere. I mean, the rest of us have to. The rest of us writers have to. And I'm surprised that his publisher puts up with it. The only thing I can think of is that they know that eventually, even if it's going to be made after his death, they're going to make a lot of money. But it's ridiculous. It's not fair. You need to finish the book, George Martin. But rereading this, I'm thinking maybe an announcement might be made sooner rather than later. But don't catch your breath. Now, Duncan Egg, his first stop will be Belfast, where I am planning to visit Ashford Meadow, catch a little jousting and maybe a puppet show, meet a certain hedge knight and his squire and the rest of the cast of the Duncan Egg show. And of course, we'll be having a meal or three with Ira, Parker, Owen Harris, and their team. Really looking forward to that. So it sounds like he's kind of for the Duncan Egg.
Oh yeah, he's all for all of it, I think.
Yep.
But
Well,
that
well
I saw people spurg about that. Oh no, he's in Ireland watching a puppet show instead of writing the books. And like, yeah, the puppet show happens in the book, so he's
mhm.
watching some shooting of the scenes. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's not
Which
that he's
it says
going
it
to
right here, a
Ireland to
little
watch.
jousting. Yeah, you
Yeah,
don't go to Northern Ireland to see jousting. That's not a thing. That's not a tourist attraction. It's on the show. Yeah, Blinkus, you are correct. Doesn't help fans when his other Westeros projects like Fire and Blood, Dunkin' Egg, etc. remain unfinished too. Correct.
yeah.
My only exception would be with Fire and Blood because he does have co-writers on that. So I think that we're going to be seeing Fire and Blood completed before we see the others.
I think that's held back so it won't spoil some stuff in the in the main series,
Mm-hmm. That's
because
fair. And I think,
yeah, because
sorry.
it's going to move into what happened with the Mad King and all that stuff now, with the
Yeah.
you know Blood and Fire or whatever it's
Speaking of,
called.
yeah, speaking of which, the stage play, Harrenhal, was our first title since it is set during the fateful Harrenhal tourney, but now we are leaning toward the Iron Throne. It's coming along well, I am told. Young Ned, young Robert, Lyanna Rhaegar, Howland Reed should be fun and jousting on stage. The dream is to open up somewhere in London's West End in 2025, but there's still a lot of work to do. Now, this is tag teaming on what you just said. This information in Harrenhal will spoil some things in Winds of Winter, etc. So I'm thinking we're going to get Winds of Winter before we get this stage play. We have to.
Yeah, unless they just the stage plays based on the stupid shit in the show.
Perhaps.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
for fuck's sake, though, write the books, then the stage play.
Exactly. Though I think it's interesting as you see this progress. He starts with, "Yay, I went to see the Duncan Egg Show film. Yay, I went and talked with the Harrenhal people." And then right after that, "I'm not attending the House of the Dragon session." So he's telling us
Priorities.
things.
Yeah, it's
Well, not
well,
only priorities, but what he's involved with and what he gives a crap about.
yeah, and when it comes to Duncan Egg, though, that one doesn't necessarily need to get finished because it's just short stories about two people.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem to lead towards some kind of massive climax, even though there kind of is something in the books, right? But that was written, I think, to flesh out some stuff that will happen in the book. But it's not going to be a full blown epic storyline thing.
Yeah. Well, you have a theory that Duncan Egg is going to reveal that Egg is really the Varys character.
Yeah, a theory. I can't back it up, but it's well, I can back up my thinking, but when first Varys is introduced in the book, it says he is bald as an egg.
Mm-hmm.
No other bald character was described by like that in the book.
Yeah.
So I'm
And that
thinking,
there's some magic with Varys that.
he's definitely using magic because he's using all kinds of perfume and stuff to. He's using too much perfume, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's also using some powder stuff on his face, so he's hiding that he might be a bit Lady
Yeah.
Stoneheart ish. because when he saw his bedroom too, it doesn't even have a bed. It's just a stone slab in there.
Yeah. He's his glamour. Yeah. Could that even be the faceless people? Or is it the same thing? I don't know a lot about this magic.
Uh, I don't think he's using the faceless man skill
Okay.
because whenever he's using a disguise and he reveals himself, to Tyrion and stuff like that, once he's been revealed, Tyrion recognizes him that he's making, wearing a fake mustache or whatever the hell it is. So he doesn't he doesn't have a completely different face. He's just really skilled at makeup
Okay.
and acting.
Yeah. All right. So the glamour, yeah. So even if there is some magic involved, it's different magic. So I'm still learning. Yeah. And he says the Blackfire Rebellion and Summerhall is what they're going to be doing. Yeah. We see, wasn't Aegon, wasn't he the one that set the big fire? And we think that he used like some really weird magic or something that he unleashed by trying to get the
Well,
dragons back.
I think he used wildfire. They had used they had like a safety thing where sand would drop from the ceiling and fill the chamber and stuff if the fire went out of
Yeah.
control.
Huh.
So
But could that have caused a blood magic thing?
no, Varys hates blood magic. He's
Oh,
clear
okay.
on that, but it is hinted that Dunk died when they dropped all the sand down. He drowned in sand, basically.
Ah,
That's like what people in the story think. It doesn't mean that's what happened, though. But that's you know, but the characters that weren't there thinks. And
understood.
it,
Okay.
and you know what's fun in the World of Ice and Fire book, where they the area that covers that bit. The only thing about the Summer Hall incident is kind of like a screenshotted letter in the book
Mm-hmm.
from the Maester, and the letter's damaged, so a lot of words are missing.
Hmm. Well, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
James.
the letter has been torn or damaged or whatever.
Well,
So
this is kind of fun for me because I'm very slowly, obviously, reading A Song of Ice and Fire. I'm on Feast for Crows, and I just got the book version of Duncan Egg. I have read the first graphic novel, but I know it's not the same. So I will have plenty of reading and learning from what you are telling me and Shane here. So maybe, hopefully, by the time I read all of those, we will have Winds of Winter. Oh, he's correcting here. No, Dunk
yeah,
rescued Rhaegar's mother when she was in labor during the fire, and then he went back in to try to
yeah,
save the king and died.
yeah, and then apparently, according to one story, it was the sand thing that dropped to put out the fire, and Dunk was beneath it, so he drowned.
Oh, like how they died.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Shane is correct. Dunk saved Rhaegar's mother.
Huh. That changes a lot of stuff. Yeah, wife, sister. Well, yes, of course. Yeah. So there's plenty to read, hopefully, because I still think, even though Martin has said things like that he's not going to allow it to be post published, or rather someone else to finish it, I still think that's going to happen if he does unfortunately pass before he's done, because it just has to be.
Depends on how much is left, and maybe he has taken that into account now, though, which might be why he's meeting with the editor, publisher, or whatever it was.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
I
maybe
don't
he's
know.
changed his mind. I
Yeah, just
personally have
made
not.
made broad
Sorry.
notes. I don't know.
Yeah. I have only heard that from someone that I know that was in correspondence with him that has said so, but I have not seen it myself. So if anyone has, the actual reference where he says he won't allow someone else to finish it, help me out here because I don't know where it is.
Oh, I've seen it too. He said he wouldn't let Brandon Sanderson or someone finish his work, and
Hmm.
Sanderson finished,
Robert Jordan's, yeah.
Robert Jordan's work, but
Okay.
he had 6,000 pages or something to work with that Jordan had and his wife had left for him. So
Okay. Well, if you have the reference, like I said, I just want it because I'm a
oh
primary source gal. Because if we've seen, you have to have the primary source to
yeah,
fairly present this.
I'm sure if I looked, I'd eventually find it. But there's so
Okay.
many damn interviews with the guy now. You have to like. But
Yeah.
I remember seeing that because he mentioned Sanderson.
Understood. Okay. Alberto says, "Have you heard of Martin said the second Dance of the Dragon? The House of the Dragon series is the first one. Do you know what is the second one that Martin speaks of?"
No.
I'm not certain to what you're referring. You,
Well,
if there,
no, the second Dance of the Dragons, right?
uh huh,
Remember book 5 in Game of Thrones is called A Dance with Dragons.
uh huh.
So where we have someone who seems to be Aegon Targaryen, Rhaegar's son, showing up. Might be the real one, and then he might be at odds with Daenerys. So that would make it a
Oh,
Dance with Dragons, wouldn't it?
oh, that would be awesome. Oh my gosh, Fagon. I haven't met Fagon yet. I'm so excited about A Feast for Crows because I know that this is truly new material for me because the show did not follow it. At Ego Outlaw says some authors like myself do not use outlines. The story might be lost completely if he never finishes. Per The only reason why I say perhaps is we do know that he has written a gazillion things. He even released some of it. So we know that he's written thousands of words. I know that you, Steve, have added it up, and I think Gary has as well, Nerdrotic. So we do have something that is true, but I understand what you're saying because he has also said that he doesn't necessarily use an outline. Oddly enough, I do not use outlines either. I am an essayist, and I tend to sit down and write. Like, I just tell myself, I'm just going to write, and it does kind of work itself out. Part of that is because if you spend your whole life writing essays, it comes naturally. But I
Yeah.
understand what you were saying. Yeah.
Martin
Oh, and
said that he compared it to being an architect and a gardener,
mm,
and a gardener writer is basically one that just sits down and writes and sees whatever pops out, right? Like
yes,
Stephen King does that. Martin said that's really difficult to do
yes.
because you have to keep track of everything in your head. And he said Tolkien was more of an architect
Mm,
because he really made the world and stuff like that. And
yeah.
Martin said he was kind of a little bit in between because he felt if you do too much architect stuff, the joy of writing goes away because you won't be able to surprise yourself as you're writing, or you won't have fun because you're basically repeating the same story twice,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. No, no, that makes complete sense. And that's really fascinating to me about different ways of writing. Alberto says yes. So what you were talking about, Steve, I think is what he was mentioning about Fagon. So you all are
Yeah,
on the
that's
same page.
ongoing, I guess. It might not end up as a dance of dragons, but in the chapter I just read, because I've started, I've been rereading the books as well, and I've gotten to book 5, and Quaith just showed up, and basically warned Daenerys about what they call the Mummer's dragon, which is uh, Aegon.
Hmm.
People seem to think he's fake because he's called the Mummer's dragon, but no, because Varys used to be a mummer, according to him, and he's the one who's kept Aegon safe, seemingly.
Hmm.
So it's he might be legit, and if he's legit, that means Jon Snow was never Aegon Targaryen. The show just made it up.
Yeah. Or I wouldn't put it past Dan and Dave if George R. R. Martin had told them some of that stuff and they decided to call him Aegon just because they wanted to be jerks.
Or they just took a shortcut because they wanted to work on Star Wars, so they combined a bunch of characters, which seems absolutely to be what they've done. Because
Hmm.
uh, a lot of the stuff Jon Snow does in is it season 6 is stuff Stannis does in the books.
I
So that
can't wait.
yeah, they basically combined Jon Snow with Stannis, and I wouldn't be surprised if they combined him with Aegon, because it's starting to look in the books that Jon Snow is not Rhaegar's kid. It's not Lyanna and Rhaegar's kid.
That is what you assert, though I've heard some people push back on that. Do you want to
Oh,
tell your
no,
thoughts?
no. Well, fair enough if they push back on it. I might be completely wrong, but in the first Catelyn chapter, Ashara Dane is brought up, and
Hmm.
as soon as she mentions Ashara Dane, Ned gets pissed and asks where she's heard that name before and blah blah blah. And it's brought up while Catelyn is thinking about John's heritage. And then in book 5, in a Davos chapter, a fellow on some island said that Ned stopped by uh, while the Mad King was hunting him. And this was before he was to marry Catelyn. And he had his bastard with him, Jon Snow, which was named after John Arryn, the guy who basically raised Robert and Ned back in the day. So even the naming there feels right. That yes, it is Ned's kid.
Hmm.
Because Rhaegar and Lyanna would not have named their kid after John Arryn. You know,
Yeah, possibly.
so there's and John is definitely has Stark blood because of the warging, 100%. So that half of John is pretty much set in stone.
Hmm. Well, okay. That's that's interesting thinking, and of course, we won't totally know until it happens.
No, but I saw some YouTubers did a timeline thing, and it lines up the Ned and Ashara Dane lines up pretty damn perfectly
Hmm.
in the timeline. Well,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, food for thought.
So
And if anyone thinks otherwise, let us know. And especially in the comments, those that will are chatting right now and will be later. It's kind of fascinating to me. Unfortunately, again, we won't know until we know. So, yeah. Shane Nolan says in preview chapters, the Dornish princess meets a child with green dreams. In preview chapters, rather, her dream sounds like Dany and Fagon fighting. Oh, I haven't read the preview chapters, obviously. Have you?
The excerpts from
Yeah, from Winds of
yeah,
Winter.
he's done one of he's done a Theon one and an Aaron Damphair one and an Ariana Martell one. So
Hmm.
Shane Nolan is correct. I've only read that excerpt once because I wanted to read the other two more, you know, because
Hmm.
Stannis and you know the Greyjoy stuff was simply more interesting to me. But yeah, he's right. There's
Yeah.
there's gonna be a second Dance with Dragons.
Nice. They were dancing in my dream, and when the dragons danced, the people died. See, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and Stannis had like an epic moment because he plans to like kill Theon. He has him strapped to the wall or something in his base, but uh, he Jon Snow warns him about people, some houses trying to backstab him, but
Uh-huh.
Stannis already knows. So he basically just calls the men onto the carpet in his tent and goes, "Yeah, I know you're planning to betray me and stuff. So if you confess, I'll behead you. If you don't confess, I'll burn you."
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, but that's Stannis to a T though, because it's complete justice.
Yeah. Yeah, I am on the fence about if someone like Stannis is better than a different kind of a king. I don't know. Maybe Stannis would have kept peace.
Hell yes, but it's more like how
Hmm.
how he would have kept peace. But I think when it comes to Stannis, uh, he would definitely clean up all the shit people
Hmm.
brutally. Cersei and Jamie and everyone else would be toast. Littlefinger would be toast, right?
Yeah.
No question about that. But his rule might be close to a dictatorship.
Ah. Which, I don't know, in a monarchy, is that good or is that bad?
Uh, well, it's standard monarchy, isn't it?
Yeah. In the old fashioned sense, before we had the parliamentary thing going on.
Yeah. So
Ooh.
he would be a just king to a flaw, but too much blind justice is not good either.
Yeah.
Which is, Davos keeps helping him out with that, really, in the books, being his conscience in a way, and I think Stannis understands that too. That Davos provides something for him that he doesn't have.
Nice. Oh gosh, I can't wait. I can't wait to read that. Shane says, there is nothing more terrifying than a truly just man. Varys on Stannis.
Yeah, he said that.
Well, you heard it here first. My gosh. Well, any other last thoughts maybe about what we were talking about, what we were going over with George R. R. Martin or House of the Dragon or even Winds of Winter stuff?
I think Winds of Winter will be announced in the near future
Hmm.
because when he actually gave the page number a while back, it seemed like it was only missing 200 or 300 pages.
Hmm.
But when it comes to Martin, though, there's a hell of a lot of clickbait articles that take stuff out of context and makes it a headline, and people to tend to read the headlines and then react to that instead of checking what the guy actually said. Because remember all those articles about, yeah, Martin's attacking Tolkien. He wasn't.
Hmm.
That was not true. You know.
Yeah.
He was basically talking about how he felt when he was a kid reading the Lord of the Rings. You know,
Yeah.
like because it ends with an Aragorn ruled long and wisely, right?
Mm-hmm.
I bet you everyone who read the books wanted to know what happened after the book. That's completely natural. How did he rule, right? How did he deal with the orcs? That's a perfectly reasonable question to ask. But then the
Yeah.
articles go, oh, yeah, George Martin's attacking Tolkien for not explaining how Aragorn ruled. No, that's
Yeah.
not what he said. He was saying that he was
Yeah.
wondering what happened afterwards, like I did.
Yeah. Well, and the articles also wrongly called it plot holes. You see, and I was tricked by that because they were saying that he was talking about plot holes in it. It's like, no, he never said they were plot holes. Or if
Yeah,
he did, I can't find it.
and
Send me the link, everyone. Yeah.
it
He
wouldn't be a
never
plot.
called them plot holes.
It wouldn't be a plot hole because it doesn't have to do with the plot at all. It's just a line at the conclusion of the plot,
Yeah.
right? Nothing follows it, so it can't be a plot point. It's
No.
And then he
Well,
talked about how uh, he would have wished Gandalf stayed dead for one specific reason. He was fine with Gandalf living too, but it was just when Gandalf died, it gutted him
mm-hmm.
as a reader because he was like, "Oh shit, he killed Gandalf. What are they gonna do?" And he was in tears reading it and all that stuff. And then he comes back better and improved. And then
Yeah.
what he said was that took away from the emotional impact he had when he died, right?
Yeah.
So and that's fair. It's not like he's criticizing the writing. It's just saying how he felt when he read it.
Yeah. And it's not him criticizing the catastrophe, which some
No,
people taken it. Sometimes it's
I mean,
just
hell, Martin has a catastrophe in his books too. When Stannis arrives at the wall, the Night's Watch
mhm.
is done, and then Stannis shows up at the last minute and wipes the floor with the wildlings.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it's just, folks just need to think. I don't want to say think critically because that sounds a little bit
Uh,
like an insult. But if you see something come across your timeline, don't react until
yeah,
you have seen the primary source. And
and
because some of the other things that he has said, like Jamie beating Aragorn, that was simply something at a convention where a fan asked him the question, and the audience said, when he asked for clarification, the audience said that Aragorn would be wearing chainmail and Jamie would be wearing his plate. And then Martin goes on for quite a while about plate armor versus chainmail, and that's why and explains why in that context Jamie would beat Aragorn. But people just took it off and said he thinks Jamie's better than Aragorn. It's like, no, it was
oh, yeah,
something the geeks were talking about, and it was really about plate mail versus chain mail.
yeah, and Jamie has a castle forged uh, masterwork plate mail, which seems to have spells on it too. So it would literally be unfair under those circumstances. And Jamie's good at only one thing, and that's dueling. And Martin even asked, "Is it before Jamie lost his hand or not? Because if it's before Jamie, after Jamie lost his hand, then Aragorn would win 10 out of 10 times."
Yeah. And it's just people being nerds. It wasn't even a serious question because obviously Aragorn and him would never fight the same way Batman versus Superman and all that. But I want to get to Alberto's thing. I don't think Aegon is fake. I think he's a Blackfire. They changed the name to Aegon to fit the plan to take the throne. I think John is Targaryen. Oh, so you're going with that? He is the Blackfire's revenge.
Yeah, could be. Could
Mm-hmm.
be that Varys is a Blackfire too. We don't know. But when I caught something in book 3, I think it was, where Varys. No, I think it might have been book 2. Anyway, Varys is talking about Elia Martell with Tyrion, and we know that both her kids got killed. One of them being Aegon, and one of them, and then she got killed. And then Varys says, "Yes, Elia Martell. She cried. She was in such deep sorrow over her babe being killed." That's not plural. That's one of the kids, babe, which means Varys might have smuggled out the other one, and she knew about it, which would be Aegon, maybe. So
Mhm.
I caught that, and I thought maybe that's a little bit of a foreshadow of Varys let something slip.
Interesting. When you get those things, when you reread, and
Yeah,
Alberto says, the way I see this is like Aegon the Conqueror, but Aegon, Jon, and Daenerys are the new three-head dragon, one black fire, and two legitimate one.
might be, could definitely be, but Jon seems to be very locked to the north. Jon in the story has not never been south of the Winterfell of Winterfell.
Hmm.
He's
You're right.
so I think he has more to do with the White Walkers. Um, but who knows, right? But I did discover that the names of the direwolves have meaning to the fate of the kids that have them. Because after Sansa loses Lady, people stops treating Sansa as a lady, and she has to behave less and less like a lady as well. And
Interesting.
we know Ghost, right?
Yeah,
He's gonna house Jon Snow's ghost.
I think so too. That's how he's coming back.
Doesn't mean it's gonna be permanent, but he's gonna be the vessel that keeps Jon alive uh, when he's dead. When his body's dead, I guess. And Bran was the last one to name his wolf because he didn't name the wolf until after he woke up from the coma, and he names him Summer. And they keep
Hmm.
calling Bran, sweet summer child and stuff. So I think Bran is at the heart of ending the winter conflict by bringing about summer, maybe.
Hmm.
And
That's pretty awesome.
yeah,
Oh, sorry.
and uh, Arya um, naming hers Nymeria. Well, Nymeria was basically left driven from her home. She had to
Uh-huh.
travel a lot alone, having no friends or family until later on she did find a family. So that name represents Arya's story quite well as well.
Hmm.
And then
Well,
you have Shaggy Dog, right?
aw.
Which is a dead end.
Yeah.
He's not important
Well, and the
because
way
it's
that
it's
Rickon.
because it's a Shaggy Dog story.
Oh, gotcha. And I was also thinking literally about how Rickon was always unkempt because he was being neglected too.
Yeah, and Rob's uh, let's see, because I saved it. Hang on. Um,
Well, while he's looking, it is none other than Matt Wilkins' Beauty and the Beast.
don't call Teresa a beast, sir.
Oh, I think I know who's the Beauty and the Beast. Yeah. And everyone, if you have not subscribed to Matt Wilkins' channel, it is the best EU material you will see, and do not allow his snarky comments about Stig to fool you. He is a puppy dog and an encyclopedia of knowledge, so you
Yeah.
will
Oh,
not
yeah.
regret it.
Grey Wind. He gets the name because how fast he is, right?
Uh-huh.
You know, he's gray and is fast like the wind. So symbolically, Rob was the same thing. He was equal, fleeting, achieving a lot in a short time span, and then he lost it all. So he was like a woof, like like a wind.
Hmm. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
Shane
same
was
thing.
helping us out. Yeah. Oh, Matt Wilkins says Stieg and I will be reviewing Farscape once I'm done with the series. Yay!
Yeah. How are you liking it so far? And how far in it are you?
Yeah. Well,
Because he's hooked on it, and guess why? Because he listened to the Viking. I told him to watch it because he'd like it, and yeah,
I must admit, you, I've rarely regretted it when I have listened to Stieg, and I hate to admit it, but it's the truth. And let's see. Love Farscape says Nolan. All that's really kind of cool what you just said about all the dogs, but we do have a comment from Blinkus Fishes about Stannis. He thinks, oh, Stannis would be terrible and inevitably cause a religious conflict with far as the old gods in the Seven. You know what? Yeah, because people do not like the red god or
yeah.
yeah, the witch, and the idea that she is really the one that is controlling Stannis is not
Well,
popular.
you know what? In the excerpts for the next book, with the Stannis chapter,
Hmm.
Stannis is not with Melisandre, and he's acting differently
Oh, I
because
hope.
yeah, because his men are asking him to burn someone for the Lord of Light to help deal with the cold and all that stuff. And he says, "No, I need every man I have. So you have to just pray harder."
Mm. Stieg knew when he's talking about say it isn't so, and Matt says yes. Stieg did recommend it on season 3. Great so far. Yeah.
Yeah, and as for the Nymeria wolf, though, Arya, basically names the wolf after a historical figure that she admires. The was the Rhoynar queen who conquered Dorne hundreds of years ago, and symbolically, Nymeria's story mirrors Arya's because she was driven from her home and wanders from place to place, looking for safety until she finally found it. So Nymeria, uh, the wolf, is currently leading her own pack in the Riverlands, the way the historical Nymeria led the Rhoynar.
Hmm.
So the wolf names are important.
Well, you heard it here first, or maybe not first. I don't know, but first I'm hearing of it. And to me, this is the joy of having new content.
Yeah,
Which,
and Summer,
mhm.
the Bran wolf. Well, Bran is a green seer, right? And it's probably so he's probably gonna be very important in the ending of the conflict between the White Walkers and ushering an era of peace and stability, which is summer, which is used how summer is used symbolically in the story. And Summer's the last direwolf to get his name, and he gets the name only after Bran has come out of his coma, which the coma seems to spark his latent abilities for green seeing, right? So Bran, and only Bran, might be the Stark kid that is actually aware of the significance of the wolf's name
Hmm. And
without
connecting.
knowing it fully yet.
No, yeah, most of them they don't understand what they're seeing. Now, how is that connected with the Dream of Spring title? Like a Dream of Spring and then summer?
I don't know,
Oh, okay.
but it seems like the names of the wolves are important. They're not just picked randomly, are they?
No. Well, and even if John is resurrected like in the TV show, he still is kind of a ghost, technically, since he did die.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to remember that that Ghost, the wolf, has red eyes and he's mute.
Hmm.
The
What?
dead can't speak,
Oh,
and
and we know
red
that.
eyes seems to have to do with the weirwood trees, right? Because they have, and also the something to do with fire, red.
Oh.
And Melisandre feels way more powerful at the wall because she's closer to the source, maybe, which is maybe how John might be raised. But the thing is, in book three, Varmir Sixskin says that any animal that has been warged into is wide open to be warged into by other wargs. And a couple of chapters later, John realizes he can't do the wolf dream to see a ghost, and he can't warg into him either. It's like he can't find him, which means someone's using him. And
Mm.
maybe that someone, when John, enters Ghost, right?
Hmm.
Maybe that someone will warg into Jon Snow's body.
Interesting. So, well, I'll be darned. So, John,
Yeah.
so Martin, finish your frickin' book, or maybe it's finished. Maybe it's finished and it just needs to be published. Because we were discussing that even once a book is finished, that doesn't necessarily mean it's done because there's so many things that go back and forth with the editors and stuff. However, in my humble opinion, when he says it's finished, he's going to mean that it has gone through the editorial process. Because
Yeah.
if he says it's finished and then says, "Yeah, but wait a year while we edit it and go through things with my editor," that wouldn't go over well.
No, and yeah, because the editor might get shit, but it's also I'm assuming the two experts he has that are helping him with the Fire and Blood books
Hmm.
and the World of Ice and Fire, they probably will go through it as well and double check everything for continuity
Mm.
because he
Yes.
said they had done that before.
Yeah.
He would contact them and go, "Hey, do you guys remember what the color of this Lord's horse?" And stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, and if he is doing that, that is very smart of him because, yeah, use the resources that you have at your disposal for sure. Well, wow. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. We've been going for 2 hours. We thank you, George, for giving me a lot of material today because it was really deep. We started off with the dragon lore and then talking about the TV show and about canon and how that messes
Yeah.
up everything. And we're seeing it. We're seeing it with our very own eyes with the Wheel of Time, with Rings of Power, and now with House of the Dragon. I did not bring up the blog where he specifically mentions people writers thinking that they know better than the source material and changing things, and he mentioned everything except House of the Dragon, and we think that's because of his non-disparagement.
Yeah. Well, he was spot on. I mean, we have so many showrunners now that are so full of themselves and thinking they can improve on the work of an
Mhm.
author that sold millions and millions of books. I mean, look at The Witcher. I mean, they actively attacked Henry Cavill because he knew the source material, called him a geek and a nerd and difficult to work with and whatever it was. When all he did was consume the source material and learned it.
Hmm.
You know,
You are correct.
and look at Star Wars. People who point out uh, full blown plot holes from lore breaking in Disney Star Wars, they get attacked. Oh, you're toxic, and you wouldn't have done that if the character had been white or whatever it is. It's the same thing, and it's the same thing a lot of showrunners do.
Yeah.
Instead of as soon as they get called out on bad work, they take what's called narcissistic injury, and they will immediately attack
Mhm.
instead of acknowledging that, hey, maybe they have a point. Because Predator 4, the movie, it's
Mhm.
called The Predator, I think. It was written by Shane Black, who wrote the first one. Um, really good writer. I think he wrote Die Hard or Lethal Weapon or something too. He made Predator 4. It sucked. it's the worst one. There's a lot of stupid stuff in there, and it's kind of like, what the hell were they thinking kind of movie. He got the criticism, and he did a video. He sat down in front of a camera and said he's seen the criticism, and he said, I'm sorry, it's completely my fault. The stuff ended up being stupid on screen, but in my head it sounded like a good idea when I wrote it.
Mm.
So he just took the criticism and took the blame for it. And guess what? Nobody's attacking him.
Yeah.
He just
Well,
owned
and
it.
for the
It's just,
most part, people don't tend to attack. I always want to see when they say, "Oh my gosh, someone said something awful. Oh my gosh." And we're like, "Okay, well, what did they say? Show it to us."
yeah. So it's yeah. Shane Black basically sat down and owned it. And he was probably dead honest. It sounded good in his head. And it actually reminds me of, I saw the documentary about how they made Jaws 4, which is a horrendous movie. I mean, you have a psychic shark in it that's taking revenge on the Brody family for nobody knows.
Mhm.
And the producer said they were talking about that, and in a meeting, and he said it was
Mhm.
kind of like a case where it was like, the emperor's new clothes, right?
Yeah.
People knew it was it, but nobody really stood up and said, hey, this is stupid. They all knew it, but nobody said it, so they just went with it.
Hmm.
So he owned it too. It's a horrible movie. And he said it was, one of them said it was so bad and such a train wreck that he was actually proud of it, because it was, epically bad. I mean, it has a roaring shark in it. It roars like a lion. You know.
Yeah. No, that's good. Well, and I wanted to cite a source here. This is what George specifically said. Everywhere you look, there are more screenwriters and producers eager to take stories and quote unquote make them their own. It does not seem to matter whether the source material was written by Stan Lee, Charles Dickens, Ian Fleming, Roald Dahl, Ursula Le Guin, J.R.R. Tolkien, Mark Twain, Raymond Chandler, Jane Austen, or, well, anyone. And each one of those has been having some really awful adaptations lately. So you know that he's calling out each of those, and specifically by leaving out House of the Dragon
Well,
NDA. So I wanted to cite the source.
there's been tons of interviews now, after Disney bought Star Wars, with Filoni, when people are asking, hey,
Mhm.
well, that's not what George said or something like that, and then Filoni goes, yeah, but that's not how I see it. And like,
Mhm.
you can't say that when it's already set in stone in the movies,
Yeah.
right? So
And there's a lot of
he's been doing the same shit.
yeah, well, everyone involved with Disney Star Wars right now, it's all I, and the Rings of Power people just said, "This is how we wanna do it. We." But what about
Yeah,
Tolkien? What about the
and
story?
I've seen a lot of those. Well, it is diversity hires that they hired for the, what is it, the High Republic, or
I
whatever it's
don't know.
called.
Yeah.
They were like, oh yeah, I finally get to tell my Star Wars story. It's always me, 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 me.
Mhm.
And one of them was bragging about how he had come up with a Wookiee character for a role-playing game back in the day because he was a Jedi, and that was so unique. So he finally got to use that character in a story. I'm like, oh yeah, so you're telling us it was the character was created by a 6-year-old. Okay, that's probably going to be good.
Mm. Yeah.
And
Well,
that writer hadn't written anything before. He worked at GameStop or something, but he had the sexuality, the political leanings, and the skin color they were looking for. That was all it was.
yeah. Well, we've seen this a lot with a lot of things, that there has to be some skill gained to do certain writing. Like when you look at all the great movies, even the great directors and stuff, they went to film school. They have a resume like you wouldn't believe it of all sorts of writing. Even great actors, they have theater work. They went to drama school. Me, I got a history degree and we're essaying and writing. That's the thing. It's like you're trained in it and you write over and over and over again. It's not like you just wake up one day and are like, I can just write a screenplay. I couldn't tell you even the first thing about writing a screenplay, let alone or teleplay, let alone trying to write one right now, because it takes years to gain the art, the craft to do it right. And we're seeing the results. Not unlike what you do with D&D. It's not like you woke up one day and became a DM in the way you write the campaigns and stuff. There's art behind it.
Well, I always try to do continuity,
Hmm.
cause and consequence whenever I can or whenever it makes sense and all that stuff. But for the most part, and you know this, I ask the players what they want in it.
Hmm.
So it's because, in my opinion, when someone plays D&D, it's not the DM's story. Right? I see a lot
Yeah.
of people go, "Oh yeah, I'm going to tell the players my great story. I'm so superb." No, it isn't. The players are the main characters. It's their story. The job of a DM is to make sure the players feel like they are in the driver's seat of their own story, not a passenger in someone else's story, right?
Yeah.
When you play Skyrim, you're playing your character. You're doing whatever you want to do, right?
Hmm.
So it being a DM in D&D is very much akin to being a referee in a football match. So the less you notice that the referee is even there, the the better a job he's done because he hasn't done any screw ups, has he? That calls attention to the referee.
Yeah. But you, as part of your, it's a unique form of storytelling, if you will, because you have to have things all kind of worked out ahead of time as like, oh, if they choose this, then there's got to be this.
Yeah, it's I do I make notes of some of it. Like if this happens, then this will happen. But that's
Hmm.
mostly how the villains and stuff will react. When it comes to what the players do, I kind of just um, make up a few logical eventualities
Hmm.
and then I roll.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's yeah. Um, I I do like that there's a random aspect to it as well. So it's not like if you guys kill the banker, then this thing, this event will always happen as a result of that. Because that's not how it
Hmm.
works, is it?
No.
It's just uh, so. But when you're writing D&D, it's like writing more like writing a choose your own adventure thing, I
Hmm.
guess, but without main characters because I have no control of your characters.
True.
You guys might do stuff I had no idea you would, and that's completely fine. So it's
Yeah, I
it's like
gotcha.
writing plot holes, but you guys need to fill in blanks, and then based on how you fill in the story between plot points, it will alter plot points, right?
Hmm. No. Yeah. And it's an art. It's a storytelling. So you just don't wake up one day and do it. And you've been doing it for 20 years plus more.
Oh, I don't know, maybe. I've probably done it like probably 1,000 times
Yeah.
because
Eh,
imagine how many sessions we've had. It's probably 200. I
yeah.
don't know.
And your writing, is there to see. So I know somebody. won't say who is wanting to be a DM, and he has put it out there that I am a learning DM, and so he has people that he's been working with more than a year just so that he can hone his skills and work with them and take feedback. And I thought that was actually very smart and mature of him to do so, because you like I people just can't wake up and become a DM. I think we've seen that in some circumstances, not to call out anyone, but it's it's not something you can just pick up and do the same way that you just can't pick up and do a TV show. You just can't pick up and write a book. You just can't pick up and write a comic. You just can't
Well,
pick up and do art.
another thing is a lot of DMs want to create their own worlds, which is
Mhm,
fine. You know,
mhm,
it's fun to play around with that, but you need to do a lot of work before you even
mhm,
run a game, because you can't just start the game off in a village you created and just have a village and a map, because that
mhm.
village will be affected by who rules the country they're in and all kinds of stuff. If you don't know that, it's just going to be really lackluster and seem lazy. But let's say you're playing, you're going to run a game set in the Conan universe and use the Conan rules, right? As a
Yeah,
DM, you have to know the Conan world, not just the rules. You need to read a lot of Conan and have an interest in it as
yeah,
well. If you're gonna do one set in The Witcher, if you're gonna do the Witcher RPG,
mhm,
you know, play the games, read, the lore bits in it, make sure you know how and why things are the way they are, and read the novels. It's the same thing with someone writing a TV show based on books. If you don't know the source material, you're gonna fuck up.
yeah. And do the best that you know the source material, or bring in experts. Like, for example, I think some of you might have heard me say about 10 times today that I am something of a normie with A Song of Ice and Fire. I just don't know. And it's very advisable to not talk about or put out there things you don't know about. I've seen this with my religion before. It's like, if you don't understand Catholicism, be careful if you're trying to do some stuff. This is connected with Tolkien. And because I've seen people confuse the different denominations of Christianity. And it's just that's why I do the Catholic Splaining series. It's like, that's where you're going to get 100% Catholicism. That's just an example. But also, we've seen it with these writers of Star Wars where they sometimes don't even know what has happened, or, just
Now,
anything like the X Files. I am a complete normie. I've never seen it. I'm loving it. I'm on season 2. But if I were to go out and try to present myself as an X Files expert, wouldn't that be absurd?
yeah, and another thing that's kind of important when you're running a D&D game or whatever it is, you need to know the rules by heart, because, uh, well, you know this. If a
Hmm.
game flows, it's way
Hmm.
better.
Yes.
So if I had to pause and look up the rules all the time,
Hmm.
it would get boring, because
Correct.
you'd have like, oh yeah, you're being attacked by this monster and blah blah blah, and then it's like, oh yeah, just give me 5 minutes while I look up how that monster works.
Yes.
It just wrecks the momentum.
Yeah. Precisely. And I think that what we're seeing with some immature things, I have called out the season 2 writers of being amateurish and not doing it well, is because they aren't making the season flow. The Objectively speaking, this season of House of the Dragon season 2 is not flowing. Season 1 had some things, one or two things I thought were a little bit like what, but it flowed. It had pacing. It built up to its climax. They're doing a terrible job this time around, and I think it has to do with experience. I'd be very interested to maybe look more into that. But we do need to oops, my cat didn't like that. We need to go ahead and start wrapping this up. I know I said that a little bit ago and we did, but I do have an appointment. So, Stig, where can we find you?
Um, Next month on Mara's channel,
Hmm.
for the shit, she changed the name now. The weird news. Was that it?
Worldwide Weird.
Worldwide Weird. Um, yeah. And then there's another top 10 next month. Top 10 1990 movies. Top 10 favorites, not necessarily the best.
Yep. Yay, it's going to be awesome. And before I tell you about where I'm going to be and what I'm going to do, I wanted to acknowledge this. Yes, Alberto, I agree that Martin needs to make sure that he is done for dead. He has an author or plan to finish his work. We need a dream of spring, and it's very selfish not to complete his work. I agree. Agree that there is a contract between the writer and the readers, especially when you think about there's been people that have been dedicated to this for nearly 30 years. I think that he needs to fulfill that contract.
Oh, yeah.
Robert Jordan, as an example, when he knew that he was not going to survive his illness, his number one priority was to get everything down, all his notes in order. And even in his deathbed, he was dictating certain scenes the way he wanted them to be because he felt a dedication to his fans. And I
And
agree, it would be selfish.
he also wrote the last bit.
Mm-hmm. The final
The,
chapter.
the end scene definitely is Robert Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
But
So there we go.
You know, another thing to keep in mind is if you're a fan of a book series, right? Be it, you know, Tolkien, Martin, Brooks, whatever. Just because you're a fan of a book series doesn't mean fans of another book series are enemies. It's not a
Yes.
sports thing. You can like both. And I've seen a lot of people that are, you know, oh yeah, you know, I'm gonna get into Tolkien's and whatever, and then like a week later they start attacking George Martin fans and George Martin. Like, why?
Yeah. And if you know anything about J.R.R. Tolkien, he would not be happy one
No,
little bit. He would be very disgusted. Now,
yeah,
Martin has himself said that he firmly believes that Tolkien would not like his work. So first of all, there you go. He
yeah,
admits what people are saying. Yeah, Tolkien probably wouldn't. But what Tolkien would not be in favor of is this ridiculous one-upmanship using him. That's not the way he rolled.
no, and it's fine to bash the Rings of Power
Yes,
because if you're a Tolkien fan, because the Rings of Power is in effectively attacking Tolkien's work.
yes,
But if you're a Tolkien fan and start attacking Terry Brooks or George Martin or whatever, that's kind of weird because neither Brooks nor Martin has any, you know, impact on Tolkien's work. They're not connected.
no,
You know, it's two different, you know, things.
yeah,
So it's okay to like all of it. It's okay to like one of it, but it doesn't mean, you know, if you're a George Martin fan, that doesn't make J.K. Rowling evil, does it?
no. And all of the writers that I have seen, I have not seen one modern writer, whether they're of literature or even of fantasy or sci-fi, who does not think that Tolkien is the bomb. I mean, Tolkien is it.
Yeah.
He's like the king, as Martin has called him, the master. But I've also seen not just with Martin and Tolkien, but I've seen when Dune came out, like Dune and Lord of the Rings, the movies, people were doing that, or Star Wars versus Star Trek, or even Star Trek versus Martin, or Star Wars versus Lord of the Rings. And I finally figured out that they're not sincere. It's rage bait, but it can also, perhaps
Well,
hurt people
it's
too.
it, it it's also you know, some people can't function unless they have an opposition. You
Hmm.
know, but it's kind of it's probably a narcissist problem. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Well, and sometimes when you look at the engagement, I think that they're just making it up. I don't even think they believe it because when you look, I saw one recently. I'm going to have this on my rage bait where the person said something like really stupid. It was actually a Robert E. Howard versus Tolkien, which is really absurd. Or no, it was Robert E. Howard versus Martin. And all the, he had 100,000 views and all these comments and likes and retweets and everything. And then he put right underneath it, Oh, thank you. While you're here, here's my website. So they don't even mean it. They're just
Yeah,
choosing or sincerely. This is the way it works, where people are sincerely mad in several ways. First of all, the fans that are of George R. R. Martin or the fans that are of Robert E. Howard, and then there's people like me that are mad because they're trying to stir up trouble between it. And that's why these rage bait things work so much, because it engages everyone. And I've been really trying to work very hard to sit on my hands, because I realize that me responding by them trying to compare Robert E. Howard to anybody is part of their engagement trap. But
yeah. I actually saw one guy who was he was attacking Martin for not finishing the books and blah blah blah, and he was raging at him. And I asked him, "Have you read the books?" No, I asked, "When did you read the books, though? How long have you been waiting?" He hadn't read the books at all. So I asked them, "Why are you upset that he hasn't finished a book series that you're not even reading?"
mhm.
And the point he dished out was, "Well, if it had been finished, I could have read it."
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's
to be
like
fair, that's a
such.
little bit of me. That's a little bit of me, because remember, I'm reading the series and I went
Yeah, but
for it.
it's a hell of a reach, though.
Yeah. But
Like,
yeah, but just understand, people, that X is now monetized. So you really, this is with politics as well. I've been seeing that, or the whole, oh, if, aliens were made today, people would complain about, what's her name? Jeannie Mac,
yeah,
Sigourney
Ripley.
Weaver's character. That is rage bait. And then everyone gets mad. And then the people do that. I saw there was an atheist that said something completely historically inaccurate. And I'm not knocking atheists. I'm just saying this person said something that she knew wasn't true. See, because they can Google too. And she also said in the thing, "Thank you all for reacting the way I knew you would. My bank account thanks you." So people are saying things that they know aren't true. That's why
Oh
when
yeah.
you respond, that's why when you respond to them, they don't respond back,
You
because
know what
they
else
just
is?
wanted you to reply. That the
Yeah.
whole idea of ratioing doesn't matter anymore on X.
You know what else is puzzling? Terry Brooks released the first genre book in 1977, right?
Hmm.
He's now doing four more books that will fill in a gap in the story. Why isn't he getting shit?
Well,
He
he did
hasn't.
complete his story, though. He completed the main story, the linear story.
Yeah, a few years ago, yeah, but it took him from 1977 till just a few years ago. Why didn't he get shit?
Well, I would argue because he kept doing them and wasn't doing any other projects.
He was doing other projects.
But he was still writing them and publishing them. He wasn't
Yeah, but
doing
there's
15
there's
years, but it wasn't 15
no,
years between books.
no, but it's been. Oh yes, it has been for the Landover books. There's one left there. It's going to be 7 books. He hasn't done a Landover book since what is it, 2008? There's one
Hmm.
left. The story's not completed, and now he's
Well,
doing four Shannara books instead of finishing the Landover series.
yeah. Let me throw something out here. Nothing wrong with Terry Brooks, but I think that what Martin is accomplishing, and if he pulls it off, it will be magnificent. It's on a different level of
Oh hell yes.
quality, a different level of quality. So I think that that's also part of it. I mean, the same way I think that the Wheel of Time is higher than other fantasy. Now, but I'm not going to sit around and be snarky and say and try to compare the two, because Brooks is not trying to do what George Martin is doing, or Brooks is not trying to do what Robert Jordan tried to do. The same way Ari Salvatore did not. He was not trying to do what Tolkien was doing with his books.
No, but the Shannara scope though is pretty massive. When you combine all the pieces to it, it's stretches more time than Feist's work does.
Mm.
You know, but he's still on par with Feist, I'd say.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah. And sometimes when I say that some are better or higher than others, that doesn't necessarily mean better, if that makes sense, because like
no, I
it
mean, hell, the quality of a book is not measured in sales.
correct.
Because look at, well, Twilight. That's not the best written book ever, is it? But it sold like hell.
Yeah. Well,
But if
and
you
it
compare
accomplished what.
Twilight, yeah, but if you compare Twilight to the quality of writing and J.K. Rowling's work,
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling wins by a mile.
Yeah. And well, Twilight did exactly what it wanted to do, as a page turner and all of that. It wasn't trying to be higher. And sometimes
You,
and you might
you know
even
why it
say like,
worked?
oh, yeah, it worked
Uh,
perfectly. It was
n-
great.
no, no, no. You know why it
Oh, do I
worked?
know why it worked? I
Yeah,
believe so.
because the main character is very much a blank slate that the reader can put herself into.
Yeah, and that's a huge aspect of women's literature and women's entertainment. Like soap
Yeah,
operas are the same, and all of that. It's like living out your fantasy.
yeah,
Yeah, it's good
and
stuff.
a little bit of that happened with uh, True Blood as well.
Oh, absolutely. Well, again, women's entertainment. Outlander's the same. I mean, come
Yeah,
on. We all want to be her because she gets to sleep
yeah.
with Jamie. It's
So
a thing.
so so having a main character that's very much written so that the reader can use the character as a self insert, it sells.
Yeah.
It's
Nope.
it's it's actually a way of writing,
Yeah.
which is why a lot of them take it personal when you when you criticize that character for being blank, because in their heads you're calling them blank
Mm. Yeah. That's a
because they've
good
already
point.
inserted into the character.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Well, here's another example that people probably won't maybe like, but you got some in Catholic literature, like you got someone like Thomas à Kempis who wrote The Imitation of Christ, which is magnificent work. But then you've got the works of Thomas Aquinas, which is like way far up there. He's called the angelic doctor, the doctor of doctors with his works. And that doesn't mean that Thomas à Kempis is any less cool, but Thomas Aquinas is like way up there. Little Flower is the same thing. She's way up there too as a doctor. And it's the same thing with our entertainment. Or history books or historians. You can take someone like Shelby Foote. It's like, yeah, Shelby Foote is the man, but that doesn't mean that another historian is any less than that. Just a thought here from the secular world. Or, for example, you've got someone like John Williams. He's a good composer. Actually, what he does is masterful, what he does with his scores. But is he any? But then you look at Mozart. Okay, it's like total other realm. But that doesn't mean that John Williams sucks just because Mozart is so great.
No,
Yeah.
it
Dig
means
it.
John Williams is a master at something else.
Precisely. Or composers from different eras. Palestrina versus Beethoven. You can't compare them. So I digress. We need to stop because I do have
Well,
my
just a
help.
side note. Do you know
Yes.
what happens to composers when they die?
I know what. Go ahead.
They decompose.
Yes, they do. Oh gosh, I've got so many jokes I used to use with my little students, and they just thought they were so funny. Actually, I didn't. I never used that one with them; they were too little. But decompose. That's a good one. I would like that. Oh, that Ella was for Stig's comment about Twilight. Ah, okay, gotcha. Yes. Okay, yeah. My personal assistant's going to be coming over because yes, I am in week 5 of my recovery. This is ridiculous. Some days are better than others, but yeah, I have a little assistant that comes and helps me with some of my housework, especially for my stupid cat. Okay, I love him, but I can't like do some of the things that need to be done around the house. So she is coming to help me soon in 20 minutes. So I need go. But please tune in here at Miss Martin Muses, where we talk about what makes me laugh, makes me cry, makes me happy, makes me sad, or just really ticks me off. I've got a really cool interview upcoming. If you are familiar with Jonathan from the OneRing.com, not the OneRing.net, theonering.com, he is going to be the guest on the revival of pub crawl, because I do feel better enough to do some pub crawl. And so tune in on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central. You will be seeing me put up some links and the like. He really knows his Tolkien and has a lot of great material. So sub to him. Also, Rev Kev will be upcoming with Dragonlance. So stay tuned for that. Also, more House of the Dragon. I will be dropping a video about the aftermath of Rook's Rest on Sunday night, and we'll be able to compare it with the TV show, as well as I will be on Sporky's channel and Nordporeal Lifeform. I did go out last night. Good afternoon, friends. Oh, it is Bad Take Motion. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, we talked a lot of Song of Ice and Fire and House of the Dragon and all that, and George R. R. Martin. So have a great day, everyone. Have a great day, and be certain to find fantasy you enjoy, read it, watch it, love it.
And never